The desperate message. Elena Rodriguez stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, her hands trembling as she read the words that seemed to blur together through her tears. 3 days. She had 3 days to come up with $1,200, or she would lose the tiny studio apartment that had been her sanctuary for the past 2 years. The 22-year-old nursing student slumped against the peeling paint of her door, feeling the weight of her dreams crushing down on her chest like a heavy stone. The hallway smelled of old carpet and broken promises, much like the rest of the run-down building in the poorest part of the city. Elena had chosen this place not for its charm, but because it was all she could afford while putting herself through nursing school. Every penny she earned from her part-time job at the local diner went toward rent, tuition, and the basic necessities that kept her alive and studying. She fumbled for her phone with shaking fingers, scrolling through her contacts until she found the name that had always been her lifeline. Roberto Rodriguez had worked 3 jobs his entire life to support his family, and Elena knew that asking him for money would break his heart almost as much as it broke hers. But she was drowning, and he was the only person who might be able to throw her a rope. Through her tears, Elena began typing the most difficult message of her life. Her vision was so blurred that she could barely see the screen, but desperation made her fingers move across the keyboard with urgent intensity. Dad, I know you have already sacrificed so much for my education, and I hate myself for asking this of you. I just received an eviction notice, and I have 3 days to pay $1,200, or I will lose my apartment. If I lose my place, I will have to drop out of school because I cannot afford to live anywhere else in the city. I have been working every shift I can get at the diner, but it is not enough. I am so scared that all of our dreams are about to fall apart. I know you and Mom have already given everything you can, but I do not know where else to turn. I am sorry for being such a burden. I love you so much, and I understand if there is nothing you can do. Your daughter, who is trying her best, Elena. Elena pressed send before she could second-guess herself, then immediately buried her face in her hands and sobbed. She had been so careful, so determined to make it on her own, without burdening her parents any more than she already had. Father was a construction worker who had never missed a day of work in his life. Their mother cleaned office buildings at night to help pay for Elena's textbooks. They had already sacrificed their own dreams so that their daughter could have a chance at a better life. The unexpected recipient, 3,000 miles away in his glass-walled penthouse office overlooking the Seattle skyline. Damian Cross was experiencing the familiar emptiness that came with another successful business day. At 28, he had built a technology empire worth over $3 billion. What? But success had come at the cost of genuine human connection. His days were filled with board meetings, acquisition deals, and strategic planning sessions that moved numbers around on screens without touching any real lives. Damian loosened his Italian silk tie and stared out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the evening darkness. His reflection in the window showed a man who had everything and felt nothing. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair that always looked perfectly styled, and green eyes that had learned to hide their loneliness behind professional composure. He had been featured on magazine covers and business journals, hailed as a visionary and a genius. But none of that filled the hollow space in his chest. His phone buzzed with what he assumed was another business message. The screen, he saw an unknown number and a preview that made him stop breathing. The message began with Dad. I know you have already sacrificed so much, and something about the raw desperation in those few visible words made him open the full message immediately. As Damian read Elena's heartbreaking text, something inside his carefully constructed walls began to crack. Here was someone pouring out their soul to a parent, sharing their fears and dreams with such vulnerable honesty that it made his throat tight with emotion. This was not someone asking for an investment or trying to impress him with a business proposal. This was pure, desperate truth from someone who was watching their dreams die despite working harder than anyone in his boardroom ever had. He read the message 3 times, each word hitting him like a physical blow, the pain radiating from those sentences was so real he could feel it through his phone screen. Someone out there was losing everything because they could not afford to pay rent. That was probably less than what he spent on a single dinner at his usual restaurant. When was the last time anyone had sacrificed anything for him that was not motivated by profit? When had anyone ever worked that hard for a dream that did not involve taking something from someone else? It's the phrase "your daughter who is trying her best" echoed in his mind like a bell tolling. The impulse of the heart. Damien stood up from his leather chair and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Somewhere out there, a young woman named Alina was facing a crisis that would destroy her future. While he sat in his ivory tower with more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, the contrast felt obscene. He pulled up his banking application. On his phone, his fingers hovering over the screen as he reread Elena's message. $1,200. It was less than what his personal assistant spent on his coffee each month. It was meaningless in the context of his wealth, but to this Elena Rodriguez, it was everything. The rational part of his mind screamed that this was insane. He was about to send money to a complete stranger based on a mistaken text message. Lawyers would question his sanity. His board of directors would demand explanations. And every logical voice in his head warned him that this was foolish beyond measure. But for the first time in years, Damien was not listening to the rationale. Part of his mind? He was listening to the part that recognized something pure and genuine when he saw it. The part that was tired of living in a world where everything had a price and nothing had real value. The part that remembered what it felt like to dream about something bigger than quarterly profit margins. Without allowing himself to overthink, Damien initiated a wire transfer. He typed in the account information visible in Elena's message signature and entered an amount that would not only cover her rent but give her a buffer for the next several months. His finger hovered over the confirmation button for only a moment before he pressed it with decisive firmness. The transfer went through immediately, and Damien felt something he had not experienced in longer than he could remember. It was satisfaction. That had nothing to do with stock prices or market dominance. Somewhere out there, a young woman's dreams were about to be saved. Someone who deserved good things was about to receive them, not because of who she knew or what she could offer in return, but simply because she needed help and he could provide it. The miracle unfolds. Lena had cried herself into an exhausted sleep on her lumpy couch, still wearing the clothes from her shift at the diner. She woke to the sound of her phone buzzing insistently on the coffee table, the screen showing a notification from her banking app. Groggily, she picked up the phone, expecting to see another overdraft warning or fee notification that would make her day even worse. Instead, she saw a deposit that made her blink hard and rub her eyes to make sure she was not hallucinating from stress and exhaustion. $1,500 had been deposited into her account at 11:47 the previous night.
Ow.
While she had been sobbing into her pillow and wondering how she was going to tell her parents that she was giving up on nursing school, Alina sat up so quickly that she nearly fell off the couch, staring at the screen with wide eyes and a racing heart. She closed the app and reopened it, certain that there had been some kind of mistake, but the number remained unchanged. $1,500, more than enough to pay her rent with some left over for groceries and textbooks. Her father had done it. Somehow, impossibly, Roberto Rodriguez had found the money to save his daughter's dreams. Alina knew what this sacrifice must have cost him and her mother, and the thought made her chest tight with guilt and overwhelming gratitude. He had probably taken another loan, borrowed against their house, or asked his brother for help despite their strained relationship. With trembling fingers, Alina opened her text messages to call her father and thank him for this incredible gift. But when she looked at the conversation from the night before, her blood turned to ice water. The number was wrong. In her panic and desperation, blinded by tears and emotional chaos, she had somehow sent her heartbreaking message to a complete stranger. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Some unknown person had received her most vulnerable moment, her desperate plea for help, and had responded with kindness that defied all logic and reason. A stranger had saved her life, her dreams, her future, without knowing anything about her except that she was in pain and needed help. Alina stared at the wrong number on her screen, her mind reeling with questions and emotions she could not even begin to process. Who was this person? Why had they helped her? How could she even begin to thank someone for such an incredible act of generosity? Her hands shook as she began typing a response to the mysterious number that had changed her life with a single act of kindness. She had no idea that 3,000 miles away, a lonely billionaire was staring at his phone and hoping that his impulsive gesture had brought some light into the darkness of someone who deserved it. The universe had conspired to connect two souls who needed each other more than either of them realized. And this was only the beginning of a love story that would change both of their lives forever. The first response, Alina stared at her phone for 20 minutes, typing and deleting message after message as she tried to find the right words to express her shock, gratitude, and complete mortification. How do you thank a stranger for saving your life? How do you apologize for accidentally burdening someone with your deepest desperation? Her fingers trembled as she finally settled on what felt like the most inadequate message in human history. I'm so incredibly sorry and embarrassed beyond words. Last night I was trying to text my father about my situation, but in my emotional state I somehow sent it to your number by mistake. I cannot even begin to express how horrified I am that I bothered a complete stranger with my problems. I have immediately started the process to return your money because I cannot and will not accept charity from someone who does not know me. Thank you for your unexpected kindness, but I must return what is not rightfully mine. Again, I am so very sorry for disturbing you. Alina hit send and immediately wanted to throw her phone across the room. She sounded formal and cold, when what she really wanted to say was that this stranger had given her hope when she had none left, that their kindness had restored her faith in humanity, and that she would remember this moment for the rest of her life. But how could you say such things to someone whose name you did not even know? Within minutes, her phone buzzed with a response that made her heart skip several beats. Please do not apologize or feel embarrassed. Your message last night was the most genuine thing I have read in years. I sent that money because I wanted to help someone who clearly deserved it, not because I felt obligated. Sometimes the universe puts people in our path for a reason. Keep the money and focus on your nursing studies. The world needs more people like you who are willing to work so hard to help others. Also, my name is Damien. Lena read the message 5 times, each reading making her chest feel warmer and her eyes fill with tears of gratitude. This Damien person was not just generous, he was genuinely kind. He had taken her mortifying mistake and somehow made her feel like she had nothing to be ashamed of. More than that, he had seen something in her desperate message that was worth investing in. Damien, she typed, testing out his name and liking how it felt. Thank you for being so understanding about my mistake. I still feel terrible that I bothered you, but your kindness means more than you will ever know. Can I ask what made you decide to help a complete stranger? Most people would have just ignored a wrong number text. Building bridges with words. Response came faster this time, as if Damien had been waiting by his phone for her message. Honestly, your message reminded me that there are still good people in the world fighting for meaningful things. I spend my days surrounded by people who want something from me, usually money or connections or favors. But you were not asking me for anything. You are reaching out to someone you love, sharing your fears and dreams with such honest vulnerability, that it made me remember what genuine emotion looks like. Also, anyone willing to put themselves through nursing school to help others deserves support. Alina found herself smiling at her phone, charmed by his honesty and the thoughtful way he expressed himself. There was something about his writing that felt familiar, like talking to an old friend rather than a stranger. You make it sound much more noble than it feels most days, Alina replied. Right now, nursing school feels like an endless cycle of studying, working, and worrying about money. Some days, I wonder if I am crazy for thinking I can actually do this. What do you do that puts you around so many people who want things from you? Are you some kind of celebrity? Not a celebrity, just someone who got lucky in business. I work in technology and investments. Psst, not nearly as meaningful as what you are studying. What made you want to become a nurse? Alina settled back against her pillows, surprised by how easy it was to share her story with this stranger who had already shown her such incredible kindness. When I was 8, my little brother Miguel was born with a heart condition. We spent months in the hospital while he had surgery after surgery. I watched the nurses take care of not just Miguel, but our whole family. They held my mother when she cried. They explained things to me in ways I could understand, and they made the scariest time of our lives bearable. One nurse, Carmen, used to bring me coloring books and sit with me when my parents had to work. She made me feel safe when everything felt dangerous. I want to be that person for someone else's family. That is beautiful, Damien responded almost immediately. How is Miguel now? He is 15 and perfectly healthy, thanks to those amazing doctors and nurses. He plays soccer and drives my parents crazy with his music. Sometimes I catch him looking at me with this expression of pride that makes me want to cry. He does not remember being sick, but he knows that his big sister is studying to help other kids like he was. Sounds lucky to have you as a sister. Your whole family sounds lucky to have you. Lena felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. There was something about the way Damien wrote that made her feel seen and valued in a way she had never experienced before. He asked follow-up questions that showed he was really listening, and his responses revealed a thoughtful, caring person behind the generous gesture. Late-night confessions, their conversation continued throughout the day, flowing naturally from topic to topic as they shared pieces of their lives. Alina learned that Damien had grown up wealthy but lonely, shuffled between boarding schools while his parents built their business empire. He learned that Alina worked nights at a diner to pay for school, that she studied by flashlight so she would not wake her roommate, that she had never been further than 50 miles from the city where she was born. As the evening fell, her messages became longer and more personal. Alina found herself sharing thoughts and dreams she had never told anyone. While Damien opened up about the isolation that came with success and the way money had complicated every relationship in his life, "Can I tell you something that might sound crazy?" Lena typed as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling of her tiny apartment that no longer felt like a prison now that she could afford to stay. "Tell me," came his immediate response. "I have been thinking about you all day. Not just because of what you did for me, but because talking to you feels different from talking to anyone else. You actually listen to what I am saying, and you respond to the things I care about instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. I feel like I could tell you anything." Lena held her breath after sending that message, wondering if she had been too forward or revealed too much too soon. But Damien's response made her heart race with something that felt dangerously close to falling in love. "Lena, I have to be honest with you. I have not stopped thinking about you since I received your message last night. Not just because of your situation, but because there was something in your words that reached a part of me I thought was permanently closed off. I have been successful in business because I am good at reading people, at understanding what motivates them. But with you, I do not want to analyze or strategize. I just want to know you. What do you want to know?" Lena typed, her pulse fluttering with anticipation. "Everything. What makes you laugh? What do you dream about when you fall asleep? What? Your voice sounds like when you are happy. I want to know your favorite color and your biggest fear and what you would do if money was never a concern again. I want to know all of it." Lena felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of joy. Rather than desperation, "Purple," she typed. "My favorite color is purple, like the sky just before sunrise. And my biggest fear is that I will not be smart enough or strong enough to become the nurse I want to be. And if money was never a concern, I would travel to every children's hospital in the world and learn from the best nurses I could find." "What about you?" Elena continued. "What do you dream about?" The response took longer this time, and when it came, Elena could feel the vulnerability in every word. "I used to think I did not dream about anything anymore. Success killed my ability to want things that were not related to business. But talking to you today made me remember what it feels like to be excited about something. Right now I am dreaming about hearing your laugh and seeing your face when you smile. I am dreaming about taking you to see those hospitals you mentioned, and watching you learn from the nurses you admire. I am dreaming about being the kind of person who deserves someone like you." The growing connection over the next week, Alina and Damien texted constantly. Alina would wake up to good morning messages that made her smile before she even got out of bed. Damien would send her pictures of sunrises from his office window, and Alina would respond with photos of the flowers she passed on her walk to class. Their conversations ranged from deep discussions about life and dreams to silly exchanges about favorite movies and foods. Alina learned that Damien played piano when he was stressed, that he had never been in love before, and that he sometimes felt like he was living someone else's life rather than his own. Damien discovered that Alina sang in the shower, that she made terrible coffee, despite working in a diner, and that she had a laugh that could probably power a small city if someone could figure out how to harness its energy. "I have a confession," Damien texted one evening as Alina was walking home from her shift at the diner. "Tell me," Alina replied, settling onto a bench outside her apartment building to give the conversation her full attention. "I have never felt about anyone the way I am starting to feel about you, and we have never even met in person." Alina's heart stopped, then started again at double speed. She had been feeling the same way. Falling for this man through nothing but words on a screen, but hearing him admit it first made her brave enough to tell the truth. "Damien, I feel the same way. It scares me how much I look forward to your messages. You are the first thing I think about when I wake up, and the last thing I think about before I fall asleep. I have never connected with anyone the way I connect with you." "Then maybe it is time we met in person," came his response, and Alina felt her world tilt on its axis. She stared at those words, her pulse racing with excitement and terror in equal measure. Part of her desperately wanted to say yes, to finally put a face to the man who had captured her heart with nothing but kindness and conversation. But another part of her was terrified that meeting in person would somehow break the magic they had created through their phones. "I want to," Alina typed honestly, "but I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of losing this. What we have right now is perfect. What if meeting in person ruins it? What if you're disappointed when you see me? What if this beautiful connection we have built falls apart the moment reality gets involved?" Lena Damien responded, and she could almost hear the intensity in his voice through the screen. "Nothing could ruin what we have. And I think you might be surprised by how perfect this could become when we are finally in the same room." Lena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Love required courage, and if nursing school had taught her anything, it was that the most worthwhile things in life required taking risks. "Okay," she typed, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear. "Let's meet." "Really? Really? But somewhere public? I may be falling for you, but I am not stupid, smart, and beautiful. I am a lucky man." "You think I am beautiful, and you have never seen me?" "I can tell," Damien replied. "Beauty like yours comes from the inside out. It shows in everything you write, everything you are." Alina felt tears prick her eyes as she read his words. In a few short weeks, this incredible man had become essential to her happiness. She was about to meet the person who had saved her dreams and stolen her heart, and she had no idea that she was about to fall in love with someone who would change not just her circumstances, but her entire world. The perfect Alina changed. Her outfit 6 times before settling on a flowing emerald dress that complemented her olive skin and dark hair. She had spent 2 hours getting ready, applying makeup with trembling hands and styling her long black hair in soft waves that framed her face perfectly. Her reflection showed a young woman who looked nervous but radiant, her dark eyes bright with anticipation and barely contained excitement. Damien had suggested they meet at Moonlight Cafe, a charming little place in the Arts District known for its intimate atmosphere and excellent coffee. As Alina walked through the doors at exactly 2 in the afternoon, her heart was beating so fast she worried it might actually burst from her chest. The cafe was everything Damien had promised, with exposed brick walls covered in local artwork, soft jazz music playing from hidden speakers, and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans filling the air. Alina scanned the space nervously, looking for someone who might be Damien, but she had no idea what to expect. He could be anyone, look like anyone, be anyone. Then the door behind her opened, and Alina felt the air in the room change. She turned around and found herself face to face with the most breathtakingly handsome man she had ever seen. He was tall, probably 6 feet 3 inches, with broad shoulders that filled out his navy blue sweater in a way that made her mouth go dry. His dark hair was perfectly styled but looked soft enough to run her fingers through, and when their eyes met across the busy cafe, Lena felt like she had been struck by lightning. His eyes were the color of emeralds, deep green with flecks of gold that seemed to dance in the afternoon light streaming through the windows. But it was more than his physical beauty that made Alina forget how to breathe. It was the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing he had ever seen. like he had been searching his whole life just to find her. Damien stopped, walking the moment he saw Alina, his carefully planned greeting completely forgotten as he took in the vision standing near the entrance. She was absolutely stunning, with smooth olive skin that seemed to glow with an inner light, long dark hair that cascaded over her shoulders like silk, and the most beautiful dark eyes he had ever seen. But it was her smile that completely undid him, radiant and genuine, and full of the same nervous excitement he was feeling. For several long moments, they simply stared at each other across the cafe, both of them trying to process that this incredible connection they had built through text messages was now standing right in front of them in flesh and blood. Alina, Damien said finally, his voice deep and warm and exactly what she had imagined. During all those late-night conversations, Damien Alina breathed, and the way his name sounded on her lips made something primitive and possessive surge in his chest. The first touch, they stood there for another heartbeat, drinking each other in before Damien moved toward her with purposeful steps. When he was close enough to touch, Alina had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, and Damien found himself fighting the overwhelming urge to cup her face in his hands and kiss her right there in front of everyone. "You are even more beautiful than I imagined," Damien said, his voice rough with emotion. "And I have been imagining you constantly." Alina felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she held his gaze steadily. "You say that like you have been thinking about me often." "Every moment of every day," Damien admitted without hesitation. "You have completely taken over my thoughts, Elena Rodriguez." The honesty in his voice made Elena's knees weak, and when Damien gestured toward a quiet corner table, she let him guide her with his hand gently placed on the small of her back. That simple touch sent electricity shooting through her entire nervous system, and she had to concentrate on walking normally instead of melting into a puddle right there on the cafe floor. When they were seated across from each other, Elena could not stop staring at Damien's hands as he reached for his coffee cup. They were strong and elegant, with long fingers that she found herself imagining touching her skin. The thought made her blush even deeper, and when Damien caught her staring, his own eyes darkened with an intensity that made her pulse flutter wildly, so Elena said, trying to find her voice and some semblance of normal conversation. "You are even more handsome than I pictured. I was imagining someone much more ordinary." Damien laughed, the sound rich and warm and completely genuine. "Ordinary? What gave you that impression?" "I do not know," Elena admitted, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, in a gesture that Damien found absolutely enchanting. "Maybe because you were so humble in your messages. I was expecting someone nice and kind, but not someone who looks like he stepped out of a magazine." "Well, you have ruined my expectations completely," Damien said, leaning forward slightly and lowering his voice to something that felt intimate despite the public setting. "I was prepared to fall for your mind and your heart. I was not prepared to be completely overwhelmed by how incredibly beautiful you are." Lena felt her breath catch at the word fall, and the way Damien was looking at her made her feel like the most desirable woman in the world. "Damien," she started, then stopped, not sure how to finish the sentence. "What is it?" he asked gently, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his. The moment their skin touched, both of them felt that same electric shock that had been building between them for weeks. "It feels too good to be real," Elena whispered, looking down at their joined hands. "Did you feel too good to be real? I keep waiting for something to go wrong or for you to disappoint me somehow, but instead you just keep being more wonderful than I imagined." Damien lifted their joined hands and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. The gesture was tender and romantic, and so perfectly intimate that Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "Elena," Damien said against her skin, his voice intense and certain, "I want you to know something. I have dated before, but I have never felt anything close to what I feel for you. You have turned my entire world upside down, and I have never been happier about anything in my life." The perfect evening, their coffee date, extended into dinner at a small Italian restaurant that Damien had reserved. Though Elena suspected he had made the reservation sometime during their conversation when she had mentioned loving pasta. The restaurant was intimate and romantic, with candlelit tables and soft music that created the perfect atmosphere for two people falling deeper in love with every passing moment. Alina told Damien stories about her nursing classes and her dreams of working in pediatric care, while Damien shared details about his business that he had never told anyone else. They talked about everything and nothing, their conversation flowing as naturally as if they had been together for years rather than hours. "I have a confession," Alina said as they shared a piece of chocolate cake for dessert, both of them feeding each other bites in a way that was probably too intimate for a first date, but felt completely natural. "Tell me," Damien said, watching the way Elena's lips closed around the fork and trying not to think about how badly he wanted to kiss her. "Researched you online," Elena admitted, her cheeks turning pink. Damien Cross, CEO of Cross Technologies. "I have to say, your business profile does not do you justice at all." Damien groaned and covered his face with his hands.
Ow.
"How bad was it?" "Please tell me you did not find any embarrassing photos," Lena laughed, the sound making Damien's heart skip several beats. "Actually, I found several photos, and they were all incredibly professional and serious. You looked like someone I would be terrified to approach at a party. Nothing like the man sitting across from me who has been making me laugh all evening." "Good," Damien said, reaching across the table to take her hand again, because the man in those photos was miserable and lonely and had no idea what he was missing. "The man sitting across from you has never been happier." After dinner, they walked through the city streets hand in hand, stopping to look in shop windows and listen. Two street musicians. When Alina shivered in the cool evening air, Damien immediately shrugged out of his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. And Alina thought she might actually swoon from the romantic gesture. "You do not have to take care of me, Elena," said softly as they paused under a streetlight, though she made no move to remove his jacket. "I want to," Damien replied, adjusting the jacket around her and letting his hands linger on her shoulders. "I have never wanted to take care of someone the way I want to take care of you." The first kiss, they found themselves at the waterfront. As the sun began to set, sitting on a bench overlooking the harbor, Lena was curled against Damien's side, his arm around her shoulders. Both of them perfectly content to sit in comfortable silence and watch the city lights begin to twinkle. In the growing darkness, Alina, Damien said softly, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her arm. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," Alina replied, tilting her head to look up at him. "What are you thinking right now? In this moment, what is going through your mind?" Alina was quiet for a moment, considering her answer carefully. "I am thinking that 3 weeks ago I was completely alone and convinced that my dreams were falling apart. And now I am sitting here with the most incredible man I have ever met, feeling happier than I have ever felt in my life. I am thinking that you have changed everything for me, and I do not just mean the money." "What else?" Damien asked, his voice dropping to something intimate and warm. "I am thinking about how much I want you to kiss me," Alina admitted, her cheeks flushing but her eyes holding his steadily. "And I am thinking that I might be falling in love with you faster than I ever thought possible." Damien's breath caught at her words, and he shifted so that he was facing her fully, his hands coming up to cup her face with infinite tenderness. "Alina," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I am already completely, hopelessly in love with you." And then he kissed her, and Alina felt like the entire world exploded into stars and light and pure magic. His lips were warm and soft and perfect against hers, and when she melted into him with a soft sigh, Damien deepened the kiss with a passion that made her toes curl in her shoes. This was not the careful, tentative first kiss that Alina had imagined. This was desperate and consuming and full of weeks of built-up longing and newfound love. Elena's hands fisted in Damien's shirt as he kissed her like she was the air he needed to breathe. And when they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena thought she might actually faint from the intensity of it all. "Wow," Elena breathed, her forehead resting against Damien's as they both tried to catch their breath. "That was perfect," Damien murmured, pressing soft kisses to her forehead and cheeks. "You are perfect." "So what happens now?" Elena asked, her voice barely above. A whisper. Damien smiled, the expression so full of love and promise that Elena felt her heart skip several beats. "Now we build something beautiful together," he said, pulling her closer against his chest. Now we prove that love can happen in the most unexpected ways and that two people from completely different worlds can create something extraordinary. Alina smiled up at him, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. I love you, Damian Cross. I love you too, Alina Rodriguez, Damian replied, sealing the promise with another kiss that tasted like forever. As they sat there under the stars, wrapped in each other's arms and lost in each other's eyes. Both Alina and Damian knew that their accidental text message had been the beginning of the greatest love story of their lives. They had found each other across the vast expanse of the universe. Two souls who were meant to be together, and nothing would ever be the same again.